For centuries, leaders, kings, and even scientists have used a hidden psychological trick to make people obey without question. You've seen it in schools, newsrooms, churches, military parades, even at home, but probably never realized it was controlling you. Let's uncover the mental shortcut that's been shaping your reality since ancient times, and why spotting it might be the most important thing you ever do. This isn't just manipulation. It's a glitch in your brain's wiring. You see, our minds run on shortcuts called cognitive biases. These are mental patterns that help us make quick decisions without overthinking every detail. They're built for survival, but also leave us vulnerable to influence and deception. Therefore, it's no surprise that throughout history, cognitive biases have been exploited, not just by advertisers and politicians, but by anyone who understands how easily our minds can be steered. But among all the biases that shape our thinking, there's one that stands out. It quietly shapes what we believe, who we follow, and what we accept as truth. It's been used again and again by those in power to steer entire populations without force, just presence. This bias doesn't argue or persuade. It simply shows up with a title, a uniform, or a degree. And just like that, critical thinking steps aside. We listen, we trust, we obey. You've felt it, you've acted on it, and chances are you never even knew it had a name. Psychologists call it authority bias, the deep-seated tendency to believe someone is right simply because they appear to be in charge. And it's still everywhere today, just subtler. You see someone on TV dressed professionally, speaking confidently, and before they finish, you're already nodding along. Not because it made perfect sense, but because of who they appeared to be. We're trained to associate symbols with truth, white coats with expertise, badges with safety, degrees with intelligence. But what happens when those symbols are used not to help, but to sell, mislead, or silence? The problem isn't that experts are wrong. It's that we stop questioning when we assume they're right. That's when the real danger begins. Not just being misled, but forgetting how to think for ourselves. And here's the twist. The more chaotic the world feels, the more likely we are to fall for it. In uncertainty, we crave certainty. In fear, we look for someone to follow. And often, we hand over our judgment to whoever looks most in control. This trick has been used in marketing, medicine, media, even in moments that shaped history. Think of those old food ads with a doctor cheerfully recommending a brand of cereal. It wasn't about nutrients, it was about optics. People trusted the message because the messenger wore a stethoscope. During wars, entire populations were convinced to support destruction because a leader claimed it was necessary. The speech, the uniform, the flag, it wasn't logic that won people over. It was the image of authority. Even in classrooms, a child who questions an outdated fact is often told to just listen, not because they're wrong, but because the teacher holds the title. Today, a news anchor delivers a statement. It flashes across the screen with dramatic music, official graphics, and it feels true, even if it isn't, because it came from a trusted source. And that's the trap. We stop asking, is this true? And start asking, who said it? How often do you accept something, not because it makes sense, but because the person saying it seems credible? Maybe it's a headline you barely read, a health claim from someone in a lab coat, a confident influencer claiming to know the truth, and without realizing, you agree, believe, and even share it, because your brain has already decided, this person looks legit. That's authority bias, quiet, automatic, invisible. You see, authority bias doesn't have to convince your logic, it just needs to look convincing. It hides behind polished words, a confident tone, and symbols of power. While you're focused on the message, it slips past your defenses, simply because of who's saying it. So, how do you spot it? Not with effort, not with expertise, but with something far simpler: awareness. Start by noticing the feeling, that sudden trust, that lack of inner questions, that automatic yes. That's your clue. That's when your mind has started nodding, not because it understood, but because it recognized status. And when you catch yourself in that moment, pause. Not to reject, but to reclaim your mind. That pause, right there, is where awareness begins. And from awareness comes power. That's how you begin to see through it. Ask yourself, would I believe this if it came from someone ordinary? Am I convinced by the message or the status behind it? Can I explain this idea without name-dropping the source? These questions act like a flashlight. They may not give instant answers, but they shine a light on where your thinking has been handed over. Even 5 seconds of pause can shift a belief, reroute a reaction, or stop a false idea from taking root. Because the moment you stop blindly trusting the source, you start trusting your own mind. And that's exactly what the system fears. Authority bias is just one of many mental shortcuts that steer our choices. Once you see one, the others become easier to spot. There's bandwagon bias, the instinct to believe something because everyone else does. The crowd becomes the proof. There's the halo effect, when one positive trait makes us assume the rest must be good too. If someone's confident, we think they must also be right. Then there's status quo bias, where we stick with what's familiar, not because it's best, but because change feels uncomfortable. And maybe the most dangerous, confirmation bias. Our tendency to seek only what supports our existing beliefs and ignore what challenges them. That's how echo chambers form. Not by force, but by comfort. All of these have one thing in common. They bypass thought. They replace curiosity with certainty. They feed your comfort and dull your awareness. But here's your edge. Awareness is the antidote. Once you name the pattern, it starts to fall apart. Once you recognize the trick, it stops working on you. And once you reclaim your thinking, you stop being led and start leading your own mind. So the next time something feels unquestionably true, pause. Not to reject it, but to make space for your own judgment. Because the most powerful form of control isn't brute force. It's planting an idea in your mind and making you believe you chose it. These biases, authority, bandwagon, halo, status quo, confirmation, they're not signs of weakness. They're built-in defaults. But those who understand them can either hijack your mind or help you liberate it. Now, you've seen the trick. You know what to look for. And that awareness, that's your resistance. That's your freedom. Because the moment you truly start thinking for yourself is the moment no one can do it for you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep evolving.